Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a sewing vlog and I'm so excited because I'm going to be sewing up the brand new Tilly and the Buttons MABEL pattern. So yeah, I'm really excited to get started. If you haven't seen it already, it's their brand new pattern. I will leave a picture of what it looks like here. It's a really gorgeous kind of spring summer dress that has shirring detail on the waist and on the sleeve. And like with all Tilly and the Buttons patterns, it seems very beginner friendly and a great gateway into shirring. If you've never tried shirring techniques before, then this seems like a great pattern to be able to learn and do that. So, but before I go ahead and start the video, if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and let's get started. So just a little disclaimer before getting on into it, I do have new braces, so please bear with me if I'm lisping. I'm getting used to my new braces voice, so yeah, here we are. So I've already cut out the MABEL and I'm using this really gorgeous viscose fabric that has been in my stash for honestly about 3 years. I bought it in the 2020 lockdown and I can't even remember where I bought it from. I want to say it was originally brought from Sew Me Sunshine, but sadly I don't think you can get hold of it. But this has been in my stash for so long and it's so nice to see an influx of like fruity prints coming again. I'm seeing a lot of fabric brands stock fruit prints and stuff like that. So in terms of the style that I'm going to go for, I'm going for the dress version with the slightly shorter sleeve, and I've just amended, I think I just altered it by 2 centimeters in the body, just because I know Tilly and the Buttons sizing so well now that I know that I usually have to amend the height of the body by 2 centimeters to make it a little bit smaller. But yeah, in terms of the shirring, I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't done shirring for a couple of years now. You guys might have seen I did a shirring video back in lockdown and it was not a fail, but it was like me getting so like worked up. My machine just would not shear for the life of me. Didn't matter how many different techniques that I tried, and in the end I found the little tips and tricks that worked for my sewing machine. I used the Janome DKS 100. It's actually the same machines that the Tilly Buttons team use. So I was like scratching my head like, why is this not working for me? But anyway, I found some methods that worked for my machine, a few simple things that I was doing wrong, so I'll leave that video card above and in the description box below so you can go watch it if you are itching your head thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing wrong, how do I do shirring, I've never done it before. Hopefully that vlog will help you guys out. Thing to remember is just to practice on some scrap fabric, so make sure you have the same fabric that you're using as pieces of scrap so you can make sure you get the tensions nice. In terms of sewing, I'm going to show you steps along the way. It won't be a full step-by-step tutorial, but I'm definitely going to show you it come together and hopefully we can learn some lovely little tips along the way, as this is a new pattern for me as well. So this is the sewing elastic that I'm using for the shirring, and then you need to hand wind it onto a bobbin. I'm going to show you that process in a second and show you how to set up your sewing machine ready to do some shirring. I'm about to start the shirring process. So the first instructions for the MABEL is to do a test swatch of the shirring technique. So in the Tilly and Buttons instructions, there's a really good breakdown of how to do shirring. So in terms of the bobbin thread, shirring works by your bobbin thread being this like elastic thread, and you need to put it onto your bobbin thread not by using the sewing machine but by hand winding it on. So I've hand wound it on. In fact, I'm going to unwind a little bit so you can see how I've done this, because you're not supposed to pull or stretch this elastic at all. You need to have it so it's taut. If I put my hands like this, you need to have it so it's taut but it's not stretched. Let me move my face, here we go. So it's taut but I'm not stretching it at all, and I'm just winding that round my bobbin, and it doesn't have to look particularly pretty, but I have done it so it goes up down just ever so slightly on that bobbin there, just to spread it out a little bit. So once that's done, you need a top thread, so your main stitch thread needs to be a polyester thread. So I've dug out some Gotterman 100% polyester thread that I have in my stash. It's not the perfect blue for this project, but I'd rather use the correct thread and make sure this is perfect than to use the wrong thread and thread snaps and all that sort of stuff. So a good strong thread, and because the shirring makes it gathered, you won't necessarily be like looking at the stitch that with like such a keen eye to see that the colour's slightly off. So I also have a nice big bit of scrap fabric that I cut off using the exact same fabric that I'm working with, so I can do a test piece. So now all I need to do is set up the sewing machine, so I'm going to set that up and then I'll show you all the settings that I've done for that. I'm going to start off by showing you loading this bobbin, because this is where I went wrong last time. So we're going to put the bobbin in. The way to remember how to thread your bobbin is that it looks like a P, so that tail and then that looks like the letter P, so you know that it always runs towards the left. Pop it in like this, and then this tail, if you've got a sewing machine like mine, what I was doing before is I was putting it underneath like that, and then the bit of shirring elastic wasn't quite going underneath where it needed to. I'm just trying to zoom in there so you can see what I'm talking about. So you get this little ridge here, and what was happening is this wasn't going underneath that ridge. As you can see, it's like struggling to do it quite now where it's so thick. So we need to do that manually with our hands, and not rely on this bit to do it. You don't want it to go under your thread cutter if you have one of those on your machine. You want it to go underneath this little bit here. See? And then that's it there. So it needs to go all the way underneath that little manual bit there, and that's in. So I'm not putting it around my seam cutter, I'm literally just putting it under that little bit that it needs to be. Now I'm going to thread up the rest of my machine with my normal threads, and I'll show you the next bit. So we want to put our thread down and back up, and we want to hopefully pick up that bit of shirring elastic and bring it up into, we want to bring it up and out like that. So you've got your piece of thread coming out and then your piece of shirring elastic coming out as well. Then we need to change our stitch length. So we're on a normal stitch length and we need to change it to be, I think the Tilly Buttons team says between 4 and 5. So let's try it on a 4 and see how we get on with that. A couple of things it also says, if you have a automatic seam thread cutter, we're not going to be using this, so forget that your machine has that for now. We are just going to be using the standard press a foot and then pull out your threads and cut them off gently. And then we're also going to be sewing with our fabric right sides up. So you have the nice blue thread on the top and we have the shirring elastic on the bottom, on the wrong side. So now it is time to sew our test stitches. Let's see what happens. Here we go, you guys. We're going to see if this gives me a headache like it did a couple of years ago. And we are going to do some test stitches. So put it in, I'm going to put the needle in. And it says to do a couple of stitches, then back stitch a couple of stitches. So let's try that. 1, 2, and back, 1, 2. Okay, and then let's go. Amazing. And I was just about to use the cut button. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to lift the needle up, we're going to pull it gently, and we're going to cut those threads off like that. And we have a successful shirring stitch. Yay! I cannot tell you how happy that makes me. Right, and then we're going to do 10mm from that stitch. So I'll use the edge of my presser foot, pop that in, pop the needle down. And we're pulling that bit that you just gathered, we need to pull that a little bit before it goes into the machine. Let's go. 1, 2, back stitch 2, and then forward. And there we go, you guys, that's what it looks like. Lovely stretchy shirring. So my loves, now that we've done our test piece of shirring and I'm happy with how my machine is doing, and how the shirring is looking, it's time to move on. The first step is to start shirring the skirt panels, which is the peplum panel. And here are my pieces. I don't think I marked on, no I didn't mark on the line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mark on the first lines just to make sure. Use that line as a guide with the sewing machine foot as the spacing in between each one. That's my theory anyway, my method. So in order to mark my lines, I've got one of those iron-on removable pens. So I'm just going to go and do that. The lines are on the pattern piece like this. I'm just going to do that top line and then use the, like I said, use the sewing machine foot as a guide for the next lines. Extreme close-up. So I've got my markings, and the first one is 1 inch from the top, so we can start the shirring process. Okay, so I've marked it up with 1 inch on my machine. The needle was down. We're going to do a couple of stitches, 1, 2, and then back 1, 2, and then we can go. Ignore the mess behind me. Chaotic, but anyway, I have just finished the shirring and it's looking super pretty. I've just given it a steamy press as well, so it's looking really clean and nice. And the next step is to sew those two peplum slash skirt pieces together at the side seams. So let me just do it. You put them together like this, and then we're going to be sewing down our side seams. So I just want to come and give you another update. I've just started on the front panels. So I've got this one, the elastic is put into the top here and top stitched, or stay stitched in rather. So there's the two pieces. I think it goes like that, maybe, I can't remember. It's like that, I think. Yeah, I think it's like this. So those pieces of elastic are in now. It's getting to that time of the day where I'm starting to get a headache and I'm getting really clumsy, so I'm going to go have a break and I'll probably call it here for sewing for today, and come back to this either tomorrow or another day. But I'm back. It is the next day and I have got the cold from hell right now, so my nose has been blown about 1,000 times and it just looks so red, so I'm going to look like Rudolph today. But we're back in the studio and I'm about to work on the MABEL dress. The next step is sewing our bodice pieces together at the centre fronts. This is what they look like. So we have the elasticated neckline at the top. Those curved edges are what create your underarm seams. So the centre front pieces are the straight pieces, and you should have marked on your little dots like that. And we're going to be sewing from those little dots all the way down to the waist seam with the regular seam allowance. So I'm going to do that now. This next process is really similar to the Friday Pattern Company Wilder gown, if anyone has made that before that's watching this. If not, then don't worry, it's actually really straightforward. So we've just sewn that together and you have this sort of little opening at the top, and I'm going to iron this seam allowance open and flat, and then what happens is we also iron that top bit over 5/8 as well, even though it's not sewn, and then you fold this under again, and that creates this kind of like little loophole opening at the top. So I will, I'll do all the ironing and the process, and then I'll turn the camera around and I'll show you what that looks like. So that's what that looks like sewn together. It was ironed flat and then turned under on itself and then top stitched. So this is the wrong side and how that looks, all the stitched all the way to the top, and then on the right side it looks like this. It's got a nice top stitching, and that's the little opening at the top. We're now moving on to the little neckties, and these are super straightforward. It's just a case of folding them in half and then in half, in half, and then fold them into the fold edge that you just created from the sides. Basically we're encasing them together and then top stitching them. So far this pattern's coming together super easily. I haven't sort of run into any snags yet. So hey my loves, I'm back again and I want to show you where I got to. So I'm working on the sleeve, and exactly the same process as before with the front seam, where you have to fold it over, but instead of folding it over 1/4 of an inch and then folding it over 5/8 and ironing it, you have to finish this seam. So there's the curved edge of the sleeve. You finish it with a zigzag or an overlocker if you have one, turn it over 5/8 and then you top stitch it. So you top stitch it like this. I'm on camera, there we go. And then you insert your elastic. It's all very straightforward. All the elastic lengths are in the pattern. So I'm just inserting my elastic with a safety pin into that sleeve and getting that in. And then you have to push all your gathers to where the shoulder sits. Well, that's a hard one to say with braces. Shoulder sits. Once your elastic is in, you want to kind of push as much of the fabric away up into the shoulder point and measure 8 centimeters from the edge inward, and put a pin where that 8 centimeters is, and then you just do like a little stay stitch there to make sure that's like flat. Hi guys, so it's the weekend and I've got a little bit of time to work on the MABEL, and the sleeves are ready to start shirring. So same process as the peplum / skirt panel with the shirring. So I've marked on my lines and we're good to go. I've set up the machine and yeah, we're going to just start the process of shirring. So yeah, I've got the hem all done, it's all looking all lovely, the shoulders are done, and then once the shirring is done we can attach our sleeves to our front body and our back body. So hey guys, oh my god, look at the state of me. I've got like a headache, such a bad headache, but I just wanted to keep it super real with you guys. You know I love to do this in my sewing vlogs. If you are familiar with my sewing vlogs, you know I love to chat to you about the real stuff. I'm in my studio right now. It is, if I can see my Fitbit, 8:44 in the evening, the same day as the previous clip, and I just had to come back and finish this MABEL dress because it has been on my mind all day, and as a mum I've had zero time to come into my studio and sew. So I feel a bit pooped, but I was just like, do you know what, if I do not go out into that studio, regardless of how cold and dark it is, I'm going to regret my life choices because I'll be sat there thinking about this dress that I want to get finished. But in good news, it is finished. And I'm going to save the reveal for when it's nice and daylight and I can actually put it on and I can swish around in it and I can talk about my my thoughts and feelings and give you a good review when I do not have a headache. So yeah, in the next clip I will show you the finished dress. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go try it on now. Morning guys. So I said to you that my next clip would be the finished dress, and although it is finished, it sat here in front of me finished. I tried it on last night. I took it in from the studio, went and tried it on. I gave it a steamy press and everything, and yeah, I don't know what's happened, but the shirring has not snatched enough. I followed the instructions, as you guys know. I set the stitch length to 4, not 5 but 4. My test piece was really good, so I'm not entirely sure why my shirring hasn't gone as like stretchy as it should, like it's quite wide. So I put up a story on my Instagram and the lovely TILLY replied to me and said to make sure that it's on the longest stitch length and that your back tacking is secure. So definitely can tick off that my back tacking was secure and made sure to back tack on every single one, and at the end that was literally, that's definitely not the problem. But I did the stitches on the stitch 4 setting because the instructions said between 4 and 5. I tested both, 4 seemed good, I went with 4. She's just given me an amazing tip guys. She said, does your machine go up to a 5 stitch length? Yes, mine does. That might work better depending on your fabric. Or you might be able to adjust it without redoing it. If you can unpick one end keeping hold of the elastic, then pull it to tighten it up. So that's what I'm going to try and do. So the advice that I've been given is you want your sheared area to be around half the width of the area when stretched flat. So essentially you need that half of that rectangle to go in by half. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and unpick one side. I'm going to give that method a go of trying to pull the shirring elastic to see if that helps matters. Fingers crossed it does. If not, we're going to have a bit of a tricky situation on our hands. And you guys know I love to keep things real on this vlog. You know, I'm learning as you're learning, and I'm hoping by my blunders that you guys can go and then make this pattern without any blunders. So that's like my aim. Even though it's annoying for me, and thankfully my husband has given me so much grace this morning and said go to your studio, go sort it out, because he could tell it was really bothering me. So yeah, we're going to try that. I think if that fails and that doesn't work, unfortunately I think it's going to be a situation of trying to unpick it and do it again, because I don't have enough fabric to just cut it again. So I'm really hoping it doesn't come to that. I would class myself as experienced sewist, but I've never worked with a sewing pattern that has shirring in it. I've done sheared dresses and I've made sheared dresses. I'll leave the card for the video that I had a couple of years ago. I made a sheared dress. I learnt from some fails and I know how to shear. So I was quite confident with the shearing process, but I didn't know how the finished garment would look, if that makes sense, until I tried it on. In hindsight, a little valuable lesson for this make, and if you're making it yourselves, is once you've done the peplum or the skirt at the start, try it on just as a piece of fabric. Put it on as if you're going to wear it and just see how that piece of sheared elastic area fits on your stomach. It should fit nice and close to your body. Whereas I'll leave a picture of what I took last night when I tried the dress on for the first time. It looks more like a smock dress, which is not the vibe. There's not, it shouldn't look like that, basically. Hi guys, so I'm back. I am going to be so honest, I've had a nightmare with this shirring. Oh, I don't know what went wrong, I really don't. Especially as I set up everything as per the instructions, so I don't know if it's my sewing machine, if it's the fabric type. I can't tell you, I literally can't troubleshoot it. What I've done is I followed Tilly's advice and pulled the stitching, but the problem is what happened is I secured it into the side seam as much as I could, because I didn't back tack it where I've had to like gather it. I tied them off in knots, the bits of shirring threads, back tacked it several times, like literally like maybe even 10 times. Tied knots, and then when I tried it on, although it fits me perfectly, some of the elastic stretched too much and it like pulled through, and then some of the stitches were coming away, and I was like literally gonna have a meltdown about it. But what I've done is I've just come onto my sewing machine to do a few more shirring stitches on the side seam, and look, this is how it's looking. So there's like a kind of more open bit here on the side seam where I've had to re-sew bits, which you won't see when it's stretched and it's being worn. And I'm going to go give it a nice press and stuff. So just FYI, if you're sewing and you're new to shirring, your shirring should look nice and tight like this and have really good stretch. Mine was looking super loose and just not very good, basically. But I haven't sheared in like 2 years, so I just cracked on with it and was assuming like, yeah, that's all good. But my shearing wasn't quite tight enough, and I also was being naive and thinking that when I give it a steam press it would shrink a lot, like some of my shearing has in the past. But yeah, we live and learn. The sleeves are better now. I've refixed them. They're all fixed and happy and all that sort of stuff. I think it's okay. So fingers crossed, in the next clip I will actually be showing you the finished dress. Hi my lovelies, here is the finished dress. We got there in the end and I'm so happy with it. I absolutely love how it turned out. Here is the beautiful bodice, and here's how that sheared waistband ended up looking. As you guys know, I had to do some alterations to it, and actually I've managed to secure it. And the sleeves as well. Here's the back. So it's quite a nice low square here and a low square at the back. And it's really pretty. It fits perfectly. I thought it might be a bit low on me because sometimes, because I've got quite a small bust, sometimes things can be a little bit funny on my bust, but no, it's absolutely perfect. And yeah, even though I had the issues with the shirring tension and the tightness of it, it's turned out really well. I did have a few little stresses that I wanted to talk to you guys about so that you can be aware of them when you come to sewing this as well. So firstly, I followed the instructions absolute in the booklet, and the one thing I would say is that in the instructions it says to have your stitch length between 4 and 5, and I had mine on 4. When I did my test piece on the same fabric that I made this in, I did it in a 4 and the shirring looked really, really good. But I did about a test piece of about, like, honestly about this much, 5 strips, and I thought, brilliant, that's like a good indicator. Now, I know it's a waste of shirring elastic, but I would actually say, if you can, try and do a toile or something of the skirt pieces, or just some kind of practice of shirring if you haven't done shirring ever before, or if you're like me and you've come back to shirring after a couple of years, so it's kind of like a refresher. Only because in my mind, when I was looking at the shirring, it all looked like it was all working absolutely fine, but as I wouldn't say I'm a novice, but as someone who's a bit inexperienced with shirring, haven't, you know, done it for a while, it looked fine to me, and I'm not aware of like how much it was meant to be brought in and the tensions. But Tilly said to me a good tip is to know that it needs to bring in your piece of fabric that you're shirring needs to be made sort of 50% smaller, and that's how you kind of gauge and know if the shirring is the right tensions. Obviously a steamy press can help to bring that shirring nice and crisp and bring it together, but it won't alter it so drastically that it goes from like fairly loose into smaller. So something to bear in mind when it comes to sewing yours. A couple of people in my Instagram DM said that they had the same issue with the tensions being a little bit looser, so it's just something to look out for. And I wish I could give you some more troubleshooting issues, but without actually trying it on your machine, you won't be able to gauge those things. So have a play with it. Don't be afraid to do practice after practice if you need to. If you are running low on material in your fabric, then try and do something in a similar weight fabric to the fabric that you're making your MABEL in, just so that you're doing a really good practice run. And I think that's about it. Other than that, I have literally nothing negative to say about this pattern. It's, as always, Tilly's patterns are a dream to sew, like absolutely wonderful. The instructions were wonderful. Everything was really, really good. Streamlined, the fit is good. I would even say maybe size down. If you're in between sizes on your bust measurement, I would say size down. I've made a size 4 for reference, and I'm usually a UK size 10-12 on my bust. My measurement is 35 inches around my full bust, and my waist measurement is 31 inches, so kind of gives you a good indicator. I would size down when I next make this, just for personal preference, just to make it a little bit more snug and figure hugging. Other than that, yeah, that's it really. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this vlog and seeing it all come together. And if you do have any other questions, anything that I haven't covered, then please do let me know in the comments, and let me know if there's any other sewing patterns you want to see me sew. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching, you guys. I hope you found this vlog helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye.